How is everybody doing? Welcome back to another episode of The Banker Next Door. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Berquist. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Bank Director's 2025 Compensation and Talent Survey, if I can get that out of my mouth today, right? So let's jump in here. So what I have for everybody today is I've got an article and then we've got the actual survey itself. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this article. I just wanted to point it out to you guys because we're going to be looking at the key findings and then going through a number of the charts in the actual survey itself. But basically this article was from Bank Director. It just says, 2025 Compensation and Talent Survey powering the C-suite. Bank Director's 2025 Compensation and Talent Survey gauges hiring expectations, succession planning, executive development, and CEO and board pay. So then it goes in here, like I said, it talks a little bit about the key findings here, which we're going to jump into in just a second. But then if you come into this article, you can just click. It has a click right here that takes you directly to the compensation report. And if you want to view both of these things, I have links directly below in the description box. If you want to, like I said, if you want to look at this, either the article or if you want to go to the actual survey itself. So I want to make this a little bit bigger here so that everybody can see this. So, and then, like I said, table of contents here, executive summary, key findings, attracting and retaining talent, succession planning in the C-suite, top executive compensation, director compensation, and then some information about the survey itself. This is about a 30-page survey or whatnot. So executive summary. So 30% of bank leaders do not have a succession plan for C-suite executives other than the CEO or feel their plan is ineffective, according to Bank Director's 2025 Compensation and Talent Survey, sponsored by Chartwell Partners. And it just goes into, it kind of gets into the whole succession thing. Banks need to develop top offers or top officers. Hiring senior talent from outside the industry altogether. It's just still kind of kicking that around. So yeah, not a ton there, but I want to spend more time here on kind of the key findings. Because we've all heard about, obviously succession planning. That's nothing new. That's been an issue for quite a long time now. But okay, so key findings here. So first thing, measuring CEO performance. So bank executives and directors say their CEO's performance is measured by return on assets, 53%, income growth, 47%, asset quality, 42%, and efficiency, 40%. Just over half, 54%, report gauging CEO performance based on good standing with regulators, compared with 48% a year ago. So we're ticking up a little bit there in terms of how bank boards want the CEO to perform as it relates to dealing with the regulators. Hiring plans level off. So just over half indicate their bank plans to add commercial business lending staff this year, down from 57% a year earlier. A third plan to increase technology or IT staff, compared with 37% last year. DEI programs decline. So the percentage of respondents who say their bank lacks a formal diversity, equity, and inclusion program that does not measure related metrics climbed to 57% from 42% a year earlier. More than half, 53% of those with a standing DEI program say their bank intends to continue their existing DEI practices. Handling mishires. So 26% say their bank has hired or promoted a candidate at the C level who turned out to be a poor fit. In comments, respondents described a range of ways they handled those mishires, from outright firing to encouraging early retirements. Some focus on improving the hiring process. Headcounts plateau. 1/3 of respondents report their bank's total number of employees remained flat in 2024, and another 38% say their bank somewhat increased total employees. Bank executives and leaders largely report that hiring in general has not been more difficult in the 24-25 than it was in the previous years. But banks under $500 million in assets report considerably more difficulty in this area. Costs continue to rise. So 85% say that compensation expenses increased in 2024, a slight decrease from last year. Those respondents report a median 5% increase in compensation expenses year over year. So there you have it. So measuring CEO performance, how the CEO is measured, hiring plans level off, DEI programs are in decline, how banks handled mishires, Headcounts plateau and costs continue to rise. And not the last one there, the costs continue to rise. No real shocker there. So let's take a look at some of these charts here. And there's some really good charts throughout this thing here. I can't go through every single one because we'd be here for an hour. But like I said, we'll hit a couple of these here. So in 24-25, has it been more difficult for your bank to attract and or retain talent compared to previous years? 59% said no, 36% said yes, and only 5% were unsure. So hasn't really been more difficult to attract, talent there, which is good. On net, did your bank increase or decrease its total number of employees in 2024? So 38% said increase somewhat. 33% said no change, 24% decreased somewhat, 5% increased substantially, and only 1% decreased substantially. So, pretty much kind of in a holding pattern for the most part. What was your bank's total compensation expense in fiscal year 2024? Questions asked of CEOs, chief financial officers, human resource officers, and other officers. So median compensation expense, basically 16.1 million. In total compensation. Did your bank's overall compensation expense increase in 24? 85% said yes. Only 16% said no. Overall, by what percentage did your bank's compensation expense increase in fiscal year 2024? 5% median increase in compensation. I would say that's that's pretty, pretty average, 3 to 5%. I would think, is pretty, with where inflation and everything is right now. I'd say that has probably eased off from where it was a few years ago. But again, nothing crazy there. Number 6, how does your bank plan to adjust staffing levels in the following areas in 25? Obviously, big push on IT, 63%. 33% said increase in IT, where 63% said, no change is planned, and only 3% had a decrease. But 33% planning to increase IT, 17% planning to do an increase in cybersecurity, but 80% plan basically no changes. Commercial business lending, look at that, 51%. Versus 45% that basically planned, no changes planned. Mortgage consumer lending, 20%, branch 19%. But so what does this tell you? This tells you that obviously commercial business lending is where a lot of banks are looking for the growth in commercial lending to basically continue to drive their business model. And obviously then they obviously have to beef up on technology and IT professionals. So let's see, BSA AML compliance, 19%. I am a little surprised at that, given, kind of what's been going on in the industry with like TD Bank and everything else. I'm kind of surprised that that's only at 19%. I would think that might have been a little bit higher, but, audit and accounting, 19%, looking to increase. Human resources, 10%, marketing, 10%. Wealth asset management, 15%. Interesting here, 32% here are kind of NA, like, no, I guess what, no response, or so that's kind of interesting here, like quite a bit here on the wealth asset management side. Over the past 3 years, has your bank filled senior roles with talent sourced from outside the banking industry? 44% said no, but we would consider it for the right fit. 34% said no, and we are unlikely to do this. And only 22% said yes. So it's kind of interesting there. I think, and again, it's just my take on it. I think it is very difficult to take like, in other words, if I think you could take a CFO, somebody, if somebody's running $100 million business and you take them and say you put them into a $2 billion bank and say, okay, I need you to run the bank. I think they could probably do that. They'd probably have a little bit of a learning curve, kind of learn some of the bank accounting and stuff like that. But I think that would be doable. Maybe an HR person, could probably figure it out. Like if you had like a head of HR. But I think if you look at a lot of the other stuff like the chief information officer. If you have like a chief risk officer, credit officer, lending officer, those guys, it's awful hard to get somebody from outside the industry to come in who's never, hasn't really worked in banking before. It's awful difficult to put them in some of those basically highly specialized positions that really require a lot of years of experience for that. So it's interesting. It's kind of an interesting thing there. Number 8, overall, have your senior hires with outside expertise been successful in your institution? And 76% said yes, all have been successful. So, and then the other, 21% said yes, many have been successful. Does your bank measure any of the following when evaluating its diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI progress, or initiatives? We lack a formal DEI program and don't measure these metrics, 57%. So I think that tells a lot right there. So we're going to go on. Does your bank intend to scale back DEI efforts in 2025? 53% said no, we will continue our existing DEI practices. 27% are unsure, and 15% says yes, we will reduce DEI, and 4% said we scaled back DEI prior to 2025. So I think that's kind of interesting that a majority of banks are kind of taking a wait and see approach. We'll have to wait and see how that works out for them. Succession planning in the C-suite. When do you expect your bank CEO to depart or retire? 38% said in the next 5 to 10 years. Only 28% said 2 to 5 years. More than 10 years, 27%. So interesting. What is the age of your bank CEO? Let's see here. So 27% are the 41 to 55. 27% are 56 to 60, 26% are 61 to 65, 13% are 66 to 70, only 5% are 71 or over, and 2% have CEOs that are 40 or under. So pretty even amongst that kind of like 51 to 65 range. The 41 to 65 range. Pretty even. 27, 26%. And I think I've seen a number of things that have basically said the average age of your CEO is basically 56 years old. So, all right, let's go down here. Yeah, we kind of talked about that a little bit. I want to jump down here. All right, so enter the cash compensation amount for the CEO of your bank for fiscal year 24. So salary, and these are like median values. Salary, $485,000. Cash incentives, a bonus, $125,000. Equity grants, $403,000. Benefits and perks, $48,000. And then total CEO compensation on average, about $740,000. Again, I think that's pretty average. I don't think that's nothing shocking there. And it goes into like what's your CEO, your performance metrics. Enter the cash compensation amounts for your chief financial officer. So $270,000 salary, $68,000 bonus, $192,000 equity grants, benefits and perks, $29,000, and then total CFO compensation, $431,000 on average. Again, nothing shocking there. Director compensation. Do your directors and or non-executive chairman receive compensation for board services? 98% yes. Is the chairman of the board also the CEO or an independent director? 54% has it as an independent director. 34% has CEO. Executive chairman or former CEO is about 9%, and 4% are other. So it's interesting that only 34% chairman of the board and also the CEO or an independent director. So it's kind of interesting. Interesting. All right, and let's see here. Enter the cash compensation amounts for the non-executive chairman of your bank for fiscal year 2024. So board meeting, typically $1,225. Annual cash retainer, $45,000. And then equity compensation, $30,000. That's pretty, again, pretty typical for board compensation. Outside directors at my bank receive the following types of compensation. 68%, 65% get an annual cash retainer. 63% get a board meeting fee. 41% get equity compensation, and 10% get deferred compensation / benefits. And then it goes into like outside directors. And then let's see here. Yeah, and then nothing really, and I don't think there's really two. And then it gets to kind of about the survey. So there you go. There you have basically the thing there. So again, 2020 bank directors 2025 compensation. I lost my spot there for a second. Yeah, bank directors 2025 compensation and talent survey. Very good survey. Love looking at this thing every year. And like I said, we talked about measuring CEO performance, hiring plans leveling off, DEI programs in decline, how banks are handling mishires, headcounts plateau, and then costs continue to rise. So there you have it. Once again, just summing up the key findings of the report. So some very interesting things in this report. I'd highly recommend go check it out when you have a chance. There is links to the report in the description down below if you want to go take a look. But with that, I will wrap up by saying if you like this episode, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, as that really helps the channel. Remember, we are on YouTube, Rumble, and all major podcast platforms. Please be sure to leave your comments down below. And as always, please check out some of the other content on the channel. I hope everyone has a wonderful day out there. Thank you for listening, and I will see everyone again real soon. Thanks a lot.